Well, I just came out today to try to get some of the snow out of here. It's gonna be a little bit of a mess, winter mess, but hey, what the heck, it's Minnesota. Although this is about 2 weeks early, 3 weeks early for what we normally get. This is the second time now. So I think Mother Nature's making up for the 10-inch deficit of rain that we had earlier this year. We shall see. No matter what, it's going to be a fun build. After coming back out here, I went and put the plow on the plow truck, just in case we get any more snow. And they are calling for a little bit, but yeah, so I scraped this off just a little bit ago here. And now I'm going to try to get it spread evenly out across these beams here, so we got roughly the same measurement between the beam and the outer rim joist. Same on that side. But in the same time, I need to maintain this as true east-west as I possibly can get it. And that's for the solar that'll go on maybe next spring or earlier if things work out great. I'm gonna run a string line across this edge to make sure that my plate stays straight. So if you can see that string, it's right over the split in the double rim joist. But when we get over here, now we got a bow. So what I'm going to try to do is manhandle this into position a little bit better. But first I want to use my cell phone and get that true east-west orientation with this sidewall. Well, I'm 2 degrees off of being east-west with this front. I think I'm going to call it good at that because I'm pretty centered on these beams with everything. So the more I mess with it, sometimes the worse it gets. So we'll call 2 degrees off pretty dang close to having a southern exposure. Okay, before I start attaching the floor joists to the beams, I'm going to check my square. I got 346 and a quarter here. 346 and 3/8, so we're going to call that good. 1/8 of an inch on a 24 by 16. That's pretty dang close. So all I did to get this in line was use a big bar over there and pry a little bit. I just nailed a block onto the beam, then use that grizzly bar and kind of moved it into position. Now I know our corners are square. Now it's back to the string line, and we'll check down the gap of this, make sure that we're dead center over the split in the two rim joists. And wherever it's not, I'll use that bar again and just give it a little loving push. And we look pretty good along this whole thing. So I think we'll call that good. That looks pretty dang straight. These are rafter ties, but they'll work in the same position. I wish I could have got the full collar ones, but they won't fit around the over width of the floor joist. If you recall, the floor joists are 1 3/4. Standard wood is milled down to 1.5 inches. So what I'll do now is go on every one of these front ones. I'll put a rafter tie like so. Actually, this will probably go like so. So we'll tie it into the beam and we'll tie it into the floor joist. That way the floor joist doesn't have any chance of rolling, and neither does the beam. I'll also run a string line down the north-south facing outermost 2x on both ends, so I can make sure those stay straight before I put the rafter tie on. Okay, as you can see, my nail is centered on this stringer, or this floor joist, until we get to the center. So all we're going to do here is give this guy a little bump in. Till that center. And that should be enough to keep us nice and square along our edge. When I do this middle section now, what I'll be doing is actually measuring off of this one to get my 16 centers as I go. Today was kind of a messed up day with all this snow. I had to, like I said earlier, I had to get the snow plow connected to the truck just in case we do get dumped on, and then had to shovel out the boat because I got to try to get that under cover here yet this afternoon. So unfortunately, a lot of stuff that takes precedence over the cabin right this second, but I'll try to get a few of these on now that I got it straight and square. So anyhow, everything takes time, but this is what they basically look like when they're attached. All they are is one-sided rafter ties. They make another type that actually wrap around, but as I said earlier, the extra width on the floor joist here won't allow them to sit on here. Well, I got my bolt put away yesterday afternoon instead of nailing on the rest of these rafter ties. So I just continue on putting these rafter ties on the floor joist and the beam to hold everything together that way. Things do take time. It'll probably take me the next couple hours to put these on, so I'll get back. On opposite sides of the beam there, so no chance of it slipping either direction. Well, I got all the center ones in before the snow started really coming down. Now I'm starting to get wet. I think it's time to head back in. Well, we didn't get quite as much snow as I thought we were going to get. The weathermen were a little off. We did still manage to get about 3-4 inches last. 3 inches anyhow. I think a lot of it turned to rain first after the initial snowfall, and then snowed again because there's a little coating of ice on everything. I'll get rid of the majority of the snow, and temperatures are still supposed to get up into the low to mid 30s today, so any ice should melt off. Now I got to finish up putting those rafter ties in. So stay tuned. Have we gotten just a bit of snow the last couple, 3 days? Okay, so this is what we're using for insulation. This John's Manville AP foil face polyiso. Supposed to be water resistant, vapor retarder, acoustic control. You see the stuff there. And that'll be on the very bottom. Then on top of this we'll run R19 bat insulation just to try to bump us up to about an R27 or 29 on our floor. We'll be using this stuff also in the ceiling. Okay, so I just ran up to the house and pulled my table saw out and ripped some 4-inch strips of junk plywood that I had in one of the storage sheds. What I'm going to do with that is just run a couple down the centers, kind of help hold the rigid insulation in there until I can get the spray foam sprayed in it. Then the spray foam will kind of glue it in place. So it should work, hopefully. So I got one side done, and as I said, these are only here to make sure I don't punch the rigid insulation through. Okay, got the other side in now. Back up to the house, and then get the table saw outside and rip up the insulation for in between the bottoms here. Well, I got my decking, even though it got snowed on. Then I made another trip up north to Deer River there, to the sawmill for another load of material. I left my trailer up there because it was just a little too much between the truck and the trailer. So I got to make one more trip back and get all the long material for the gable walls. Well, I'm just up at the shop this morning. It's a nice cool one, 23 degrees I believe, and we're going to cut up some of that insulation that I didn't manage to get back to last night. So brought out the little dual table saw just to make things go a little easier. I could cut it with a knife, but just a little more uniform. Okay, back at the cabin build. We've got our Mansville iso poly or polyiso here. And this is what I was saying yesterday. We're gonna set 2 courses in here, and then we're gonna go fiberglass bats. These first 2 courses, we're gonna put the reflective side down. That'll hopefully radiate the cold down. Then the second side we'll put up, and hopefully that'll radiate the heat upwards. In theory it sounds good. Whether it really works in practical use is another story. And then what we'll do is go around after we get the second layer in here. We'll go around and fill the gaps on the side with expanding foam. It's pretty chilly out here, so I don't know how well it's gonna expand, but we're using it more as a glue. And this stuff is supposed to be bug and critter repellent, so with luck we shall see how everything works with this. We did this one another time with just a single layer on another tiny house just to get the extra R value in the floor system. And it seems to be working out pretty good there. So anyhow, there's 2 layers of 3/4. I went with the 2 layers of 3/4 if I didn't say it earlier, because the 1.5 inches was $45 a sheet, and I believe these were somewhere around 14 or 15 a sheet. So basically got the same R value for $12 less a sheet. Now the next step, I'm going to take spray foam and go along the edges, let that tack up a little bit, and then lay 5.5 inches of batt insulation for an R19. So by the time everything's said and done, we should have right around R27 to R29 on the floor. Okay, now I just use a little bit of this great stuff for spray foam and go around all the crevices to try to prevent any airflow or air movement in the cavity. This stuff will stick to just about everything, so you don't want to get it on your hands. But this will do 2 things. It'll keep any of the airflow movement and bugs out of these cavities, plus it'll hold the rigid insulation in place. Anywhere I see gaps, I just kind of add a little bit. It would have been really nice to spray foam everything on here, but budget just won't allow it. Okay, now that that's all done, I think I'm going to run to Menards. Seeing how this took a little bit longer than I thought it would, and grab a tarp and my deck tiebacks I'd have to go through before I insulate this, because once I insulate it I got to get the flooring down and then get the tarp over the top of the flooring, at least try to keep everything dry inside here.